Hello, friends, it's Joy Selden, and I've seen everything, but what I did not foresee is that I would completely blunder last week and not post an episode. So here it is this week. This is Season 3, Episode 11, where we talk about more Kipo. So enjoy! Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden. I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle and Joy, and I've seen almost nothing.
And we're here today to talk about Kipo, Season 3, Episodes 5 and 6.
Woohoo!
We're getting so close every time. To the end.
Like, as if
you do.
Some episodes are more exciting than others, except that none of them are more exciting than any other one. They're all great.
They're all pretty good. They're in the grand scheme of shows, I think this is one of the series that, like, every episode is good.
Yeah.
Like, there isn't a filler episode amongst it. It all is good content.
Because every episode is so short and the seasons are so short, they just have to be, like, super efficient, you know? And they are.
They trim the fat. And
I'll try and come up with a different celebratory noise for the show finale, though. How about that?
We'll see.
Just to make it stand out a little bit.
I'm betting it's going to be hoo-woo instead of boo-hoo. Cast your vote.
Little do you know, it's going to be like a hoo-ah.
She's going to stay up tonight trying to think of what to do 2 episodes from now. Just you watch. Just you watch? Just you listen.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Hi, friends.
Hello.
So we should hop into the episode because a lot happens. There you go. Tick that off your season 3 bingo card. There it is. We should just put a lot happens and just be like, did I mention it 5 times or 6 times? And that's how you get a bingo.
Joy says a lot happens more than 3 times. Danielle woohoos more than twice.
You just there's a place for you to put little X's to know if you've actually gotten the square or not. But yeah,
okay.
so we open with Song Remix, which is an episode basically all about Song Oak, because, you know, we sort of open with Song in this brain space of like she's trying to, I mean, I don't know what she's trying to do. She just sort of seems lost in the fog, you know, and the giant monkey is there too, and she's just doesn't really seem to know where she's going.
When the episode opens, it's Song in her mind when she's still being held captive by Dr. Amelia, right?
Yes.
So I was assuming that all of the red fogs and all of the red clouds are basically the effects of the pheromone ? Although, when Kipo was wandering through her mind in her episode, she also had clouds that she kind of had to wander through and around, right?
Yeah, I think the clouds
Although those clouds were Mulholland.
Well, not always.
but the one time we saw her, right? Like I don't know, actually. You're right.
No. The time that we see her first go mega, it's not Mulholland, and it's just her surrounded by clouds, and she's being chased by the Mega Jaguar.
You're right. Yeah. I thought a lot about how her mom's clouds are red and her clouds are purple.
And I love that. I love that you do that. That's why we made a show. I think the clouds specifically are just meant to reference that it's like a clouded mind of a person who, you know, has these 2 warring things in them. And it's this sort of thing where the human part and the megamute part kind of get larger or smaller depending on who's in charge.
Yeah.
And this is only something that you see once you go back and you watch the whole thing again, right? Like when you watch it for the first time, you might not be able to notice it. But we see it with Kipo, we see it with Song, where like, you know, it's sort of this tug of war with a megamute, and like the megamute is definitely separate from the person, right? And there's a lot of like fog/clouds. There's some water imagery. There's a lot of like, sometimes you can feel stuck, or sometimes you can like be running away from yourself. It's a really interesting brain space, I think. It's a lot of metaphor.
Yeah.
So, like, it sort of leaves it up to interpretation for the people watching, which I really like. Like,
oh, me too.
You know, is it brain fog? Is it, you know, like, what are we seeing here?
Everyone's minds look like that. You know, this is a great question from Mulholland. You know, if you go into the mind of someone who isn't half mute, is it still cloudy in there or what's going on?
And you're not trying to, you know, eat them. When you're not trying to eat them, what does it look like? Because we haven't really seen that. Mm-hmm. We haven't actually seen him, except with Song, that like one time where he was like, I just wanted to bring you to a nice chill place until we could talk about your daughter.
At any rate,
we getting back to Song, we definitely have the morning of the mega monkey attack, mm-hmm. right? Dr. Amelia coming to her and we found your daughter and you're gonna destroy the burrow she's in, and then she gets doused with the pheromone and goes completely immobile as mm-hmm. she tends to do.
And then of course cut to title.
And we cut to title. By the way, I know we haven't really talked about it, but I mm-hmm. love that Kipo is all over this world, and it's like, of course you named your kid Kipo. There's Kipo everywhere you look. Which is basically just a joke of like how they end up putting the name of the show in every single shot, every single like opening shot without just a big old title card. But anyway, we actually open with like the funeral or the memorial for Yummy and Hammerpaw.
Very slightly before that, we get everyone waiting for the A-team, as it were, to return from the end of the last episode. And the only reason I noted this scene is because I thought it was very cute to see who went to whom to say hello first. Right? Like, obviously, Troy goes right to Benson and Benson gets a kiss, which was adorable. But Mondu runs and tackles Dave, and Asher, in kind of a surprise, tackles Wolf. So I guess those two have a friendship that hasn't really been explored in this show thus far.
Remind me, Asher is the one really good at the axes, or is that Dahlia?
I think that Dahlia was the axes.
Oh, then never mind.
I could go back. I could go back and double check, but the only reason I thought that Dahlia was the one who was good at the axes is because that's part of why I was so surprised that Asher tackled Wolf.
Right.
You know what? If you give me 3 seconds, I can control F this situation.
Yes.
And determine for sure who is good at the axes.
I would love to know. I think this is time well spent.
Okay. Dahlia is having a day and takes it out on a log. So Dahlia is the one who's good at axes. Dahlia
is the one that's good at axes. Never mind. My whole theory went out the window.
Dahlia has an axe and Asher got a haircut. Yeah. It's very strange. There's a little friendship going on that we haven't gotten to explore yet, which I'm not upset about. Can't wait to see that happen.
I do love that. I do love that there's stuff going on off camera for us.
Yeah. And then, of course, Kipo's just holding kitten Yum Yin, gets like a sad little boop on her head from her mom. And then, yes, we turn to everyone gathered in the Grand Hall, or the Great Hall, I suppose, to honor Yum Yin for his bravery.
And it's somber while also being funny, which I really enjoy how the show is able to like toe that line very, mm-hmm. very carefully. What is it? What is it? Something like Yum Yin would have never ignored the yarn ball or something like that.
He fell asleep while you were talking about him. The old Yum Yin would never fall asleep while you were talking about him.
Yeah, that's
he's also, just kind of on Kipo's shoulder and kneading her shoulder. So Benson has to yank him off. So I think that this was interesting for us to see, partly because at the end of the last episode, I was wondering to myself, what would it feel like to be a mute who was, quote, cured, right? And would it feel like being trapped in a body that couldn't communicate? But clearly that isn't what's happening, right? Because what's happening is that the animals' mental faculties are being taken away as well. So they really aren't themselves at all. This isn't Yum Yin. He's not acting the same way he usually does, which is wild. But I don't know. Do you really think his whole personality should have changed?
I think it's really hard to say. I think they're kind of playing a little fast and loose with what it means. As we'll see later on in these 2 episodes, we definitely see other people get cured. And like some of them do act differently. You know, some of them like recognize, you know, their counterparts. Some of them don't recognize their counterparts. Some of the, you know, some of them understand that something bad has happened.
Right.
You know, or at least appear
I mean,
to.
a bunch of them turn like right at the end of episode 6. So I haven't gotten to really see the repercussions of that yet. Yeah. But you're right. Like, they certainly recognize the people around them and the people they're connected to. Yeah. Whereas Yum Yum is just kind of like chill and sleepy and, you know.
I mean, maybe it was a commentary on cats. Have we considered maybe it's a commentary on cats and how they're so aloof anyway?
Some cats are like very attacky cats, and I thought that Yum Yum would be much more of an attacky cat. This is not an attacky cat. This is a cat who likes to find the warmest place in the village, which is the kitchen.
Yes,
and then just spend hours there.
Yes, this cat is a lounge cat, possibly a lap cat. This cat is not interested in hunting. Exactly, not, or at least not in these episodes.
This cat is going to get caught in the canopy the way Yum Yum did.
No, absolutely not. This cat does not operate like that. And it's, you know, it's also a really nice way to bring, and to your point, I think it is an interesting thing of like, that would be absolutely horrific, right? Like you feel like you're trapped and like, how would you even get your point across to the people around you? And I think what it is like part of the mutation. I mean, again, they're kind of playing fast and loose with what the mutation even is, right? So I think part of what they're reversing is the way the brain operates when it's not as advanced. Because a house cat is not going to have a terribly advanced brain. They're essentially they're like de-evolutionizing these animals, which makes sense. It's like so people would become, you know, like mindless monkeys. Well, not mindless. Monkeys have minds, but like, we would not be able to put together complex thought is my point. You know, there'd probably be a lot of shrieking and running around and bashing things with rocks. And then it would just be like, what is wrong with that person? I would love to see what happens if something like this actually hits a human. Did we get any humans hit? I don't think so, right?
Not in these episodes, no.
I don't know that I mean, spoilers. I don't know that the show actually goes that far. I would be interested to know. It's like the mutes that are humans if we just revert. But anyway, sorry. Welcome to the show. We've already gotten off track and it's only been 15 minutes. So everyone is freaking out for good reason. You know, because as you said, it's like, this is definitely not Yum Yum. Like they have this little mini debate, but everyone lands pretty hard in the, this isn't Yum Yum Hammer Paw anymore camp. I love the, I don't want to be small. That's what you're worried about, losing your sick gains? You won't be able to talk.
That was such a great moment.
I was like, of course the raccoons don't want to be small.
Their gains. Meanwhile, Kipo is just being her usual self and trying to calm everyone down by assuring them that she has a plan.
And, you know, Leo reveals that they have one of the darts, you know, so Song could make a vaccine. And it's like, yeah, I'm a scientist, but I'm not as good as Song is. We really need your mother. And it's like, well, we have one of the darts. So they stick the mega monkey and they get Song back. And I was a little disappointed that it was, quote unquote, this easy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know about easy. I don't know if easy is the right word.
Because they lost a lot to get that dart, you know? Like, that was the buildup of episodes 3 and 4, getting to this moment in episode 5.
Exactly. I say easy. It just felt a little weird that it was like, and now Song is cured. Okay. Like, you know, I thought it was going to be a little more climactic in the grand scheme of the show.
No, that's fair. But at the same time, I think that just because of the timing of the episode, this wasn't and couldn't be the emotional climax of the episode. Right?
Yeah.
And so they kind of didn't make it out to be that. There wasn't any music playing in the background during this tearful reunion. And there were a couple of nice moments, right? Like, I love that as soon as Kipo has a chance to say hello to her mom, and then Leo comes in for the hug, the next thing they say is, Wolf, come on over, family hug, you know, and the entire crew gets in.
And Benson and Dave invite themselves.
But there wasn't music or anything playing in the background the way there was for, say, when Yum Yum devolved, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was an emotional climax. Yeah. I'm okay with that, though, because what that allows the episodes do is just give us a lot of the fallout of her mom turning back, right? Because ultimately, her mom turned back, great. And now we have to build a mother-daughter relationship that basically doesn't exist, right? Yeah. They don't know each other. They've never had a conversation before. This is their first time meeting. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird, right? And they know that they love each other, like in their brain spaces, because they're mother and daughter, but they haven't really had a time to actually like develop that love, for lack of a better way to say it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely that, because it's, you know, Kipo for the entire episode will try and find their thing.
Mm-hmm. And so,
we need a thing.
Coming around full circle, I like that it wasn't an emotional moment, because it kind of couldn't be.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And I mean, also, they are dropped into, you know, the setup for that entire thing is so heavily involved in getting Song back, getting her up to speed, having her create a vaccine, and doing it all very, very quickly so that they can save everybody, because the humans are on their way.
Now, to be fair, Song is the one who wanted to do it very, very quickly. What I kind of loved is getting to see Song and Leo together, and Leo being the one like, no, let's enjoy this. Let's have some family moments. And I think that Kipo absolutely would have agreed with him in that. And Song is the one who's like, nope, I know, Amelia. we gotta start putting the vaccine together yesterday.
and of course she's correct, because what they find out, I think, at the end of that episode is something like Amelia's already on her way and going to be there in a day. Was it?
Yeah. No, a day. The humming bombers come and tell them. At the same time, they're like, and also, we're on your team now. Because also, everyone
please
is
protect us.
Panicking about Amelia, Dr. Amelia, rather, and her army. Because now all the Burrow humans are not living happily on their little cruise ship. They are on their way. They are her army, and they all have these giant crossbows filled with the dose.
The cure. The quote-unquote cure.
I know. I hate calling it the cure. I'm like, let's come up with another name for it.
It's got a bad mouthfeel. Got a real bad mouthfeel. I don't like it. But I love that she's, like, Song is very obviously Kipo's mother. Like, you can tell immediately that Kipo takes after her mother.
Yep.
Like, and it's not subtle. And we find that out in, oh goodness, is the first thing the skunks?
Which first thing?
The first thing that she runs headlong into of, like, I bet I can do this.
Oh, yes. That is the skunks.
It's like they're walking around trying to. So what they decide is Song needs more time to figure out this vaccine. So they go to try and see the what are the bees called again? Yes, the dubstep bees, because they are immune to death ivy. And they're hoping that if they surround their home with death ivy, if they surround Cat Valley with death ivy, that, you know, maybe it will give Dr. Amelia pause, and it will give them a little bit more time to make this vaccine. So on their way to the dubstep bees, they run into the scooter skunks. Is that what it? Oh my God, there's too many mute names.
So many mute names. And
we see a lot of them in this episode, and I was trying to keep up, but I I didn't quite do as well as I wanted. But yeah, like they run across the scooter skunk and it's like, you'll have to race us for it. And Song is like, I can do that. And she fails spectacularly.
I mean, she just immediately tips right over. So much so that Kipo's like, I kind of thought you would know how to ride a bike. And her mom's like, yeah, nah. She kind of just thought that her confidence would allow her to be successful in the task, which is very, very Kipo. Very, very Kipo.
It's so Kipo. And I love that we get that so fast. Like, this is how you know they're related. And, of course, you know, they do they run into anyone else? No, they pretty much run into the Dubstep bees, like, right after that, right? Yeah. So they run into the Dubstep bees, and Kipo, in trying to protect her mother, says some Dubstep gibberish at the bees.
Angers the Dubstep queen. Now, they don't really run into the Dubstep bees, right? Because just to kind of make clear the two sides of the episode, because we have to talk about the other side of the episode later.
Yes, which we will get to, I promise.
This is the A-plot, right? And the A-plot is exactly what you've described so far, but it's Song, Leo, Kipo, and Wolf. Because Wolf is their surface guide. And Wolf is the one who, you know, knows the best way to get to the Dubstep bees and then eventually gets them there. It's a nice little setup, though, because all along the way, like originally it was only going to be Kipo and Wolf who were going to go along on this little journey. And Kipo and her mom separately come up with the same idea, which is that they would like to, as we said, build their relationship, or as Kipo puts it, create special memories together. And so they simultaneously ask each other like, hey, do you want to come? Hey, can I come? Right? But with Wolf there, what the show is solidly setting up is that Wolf is part of these special memories too, and that Wolf is part of this family. Like, even though Benson and Dave like invite themselves in for the hug, those are family friends. Wolf, though, Wolf is family. And
Wolf is the sister.
Yeah, like she is. She just is. And we even see it earlier in the episode where Kipo's mom is doing science on the chalkboard. And Kipo is kind of, you know, watching intently, actually, just kind of spectating the science happen. And at one point starts chanting, Mom, 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 Mom. And Wolf just joins right in. So the two of them are sitting there chanting, Mom, 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 together. And then Wolf is like, you know, Kipo's like, I don't know that this is how I imagined that having a family would be. And Wolf is kind of like, no, I did.
Like, actually, this is exactly what I imagined.
This is exactly what I imagined, that everything you are doing, you will do together. And so anyway, here's our little family unit.
Yes. No,
on their side of the adventure.
I did misstep because it is very important to note that Wolf is included in this group. Because she also provides much needed sarcasm as they continue on their way. But so Kipo has insulted the queen bee.
Yeah.
And the queen bee has stung her. And what we find out is that means Kipo has to dance, and she will dance so much, and then she will die.
My favorite thing is when Kipo tries to turn into the Mega Jaguar.
And keeps dancing.
Keeps on dancing and becomes smaller. And she's like, I thought that would help for no reason whatsoever.
I could have sworn that was going to do something based on absolutely nothing. Help.
Based on absolutely nothing.
It's so like I love
exactly
that, you know,
her mom.
I know. The camera pans out and we just see this giant jaguar busting a move like as big as buildings. It's like, nope.
No.
Don't know why.
Worse.
Don't know why I thought that would work.
This is worse. This is worse.
That is actually one of my favorite moments of a giant jaguar just busting a move. But yes, so what happens is Song actually talks to the bees, and you know, Kipo gets this moment of like, wait, are you really communicating with them right now? And she's like, yeah, I know the thing with the scooter skunks. That I was a little too big for my britches on that one, but trust me, I actually know bee.
Yep.
Let me talk to them in this way. And what happens
is that her first attempt?
Yeah, no, take it.
Okay, her first attempt is to try to impress the queen and the rest of her bees. So they decide, all right, if we can impress you with our dance, then you'll give Kipo the antidote, right? Yeah. And I love, it's very much the moment of how I think I look versus how I actually look, or how I think I sound versus how I actually sound, because we, the audience, get to see the very cool version of them. I don't know, doing dubstep? I don't know, dancing.
I don't actually know what they're doing. They're dancing. Insert dancing here. Wolf's is my favorite part, because Wolf's essentially boils down to that overbite dance. You know, she's barely doing anything.
But it still looks good because it's zooming in and out, and it's choreographed, and they're taking turns, and they're bright flashing lights behind them, and the music is actually good. And then the episode zooms out a little bit, and we just see 4 people doing completely disjointed, quote, dance moves in the middle of the street.
And then as the music fades out, pose cool, pose cool.
Absolutely not impressed. Absolutely not impressed.
Yeah.
At which point, song rolls rapport.
Yes, song rolls rapport and gets it. I actually appeals to, but you're a mother as well, and she was just trying to protect me, and I completely understand, and has this really heartfelt, please release my daughter. Yep. She's just trying to protect me. And the queen bee buys it.
Yeah.
And it's so now that we're friends, would you mind?
Would you mind convincing her to help us build a wall? The answer is yes. And now the dubstep bees are going to build this just giant death ivy wall around the entirety of Timbercat Village.
I think we should have had more. I think we should have had more dubstep bees defending the wall, because you try to hit a bee with a dart.
Right. Okay. See, I was going to say, we have to talk about that when we talk about episode 6, because as much as I enjoy the idea of building a wall, when your wall is something that essentially a giant fan would blow apart, you got a bit of a problem, Granted, it wasn't ever supposed to be a permanent solution, right? It was really just meant to slow Amelia down. And part of what's going on is that Kipo is Kipo, and she's so thoroughly convinced that her mom will have a vaccine in under 24 hours because she thinks, or knows rather, that her mom is a brilliant scientist. Where the reality of the situation is, brilliant scientist or not, good science takes more than 24 hours to come together, Well, and also song is out of practice, but we can't get ahead of ourselves because episode 6 is coming. Let's talk about the B team. The B plot. Because I know you want to talk about the B plot here. The B plot is going to be very hard to talk about in a way that is enjoyable to listen to.
I know. So wait, I think I can kind of sum it up, because really it's a series of moments of Benson and Dave basically saying they're wait, where's Yum Yum? And Dave is oh, he's in the kitchen. He's fine. Yeah. And it's you left him alone? It's how, we don't know what he could be anywhere. Yeah. And so they sort of start running around trying to find Yum Yum.
Well, that's the B plot. The B plot is that Dave and Benson are going to find Yum Yum.
Yes,
you're right.
And it's a series of them looking for, it's almost like a montage. It's so quick. Yeah. There's a couple they're in the woods and they're calling out to Yum Yum, which we'll get to in a second. I want to talk about that, but we'll get to that in a second. And they're looking for Yum Yum, and eventually they end up back in the Great Hall, and it's they drag in another Timbercat, and they're we found Yum Yum, and it's just a smaller Timbercat. That's not actually Yum Yum.
P.S. None of the other Timbercats notice. They look at the smaller Timbercat and immediately burst into cheers.
I know. I know.
That's the best part, where Dave is we can't find Yum Yum, let's just bring him another cat. And Benson's there's no way that's going to work. And then it does.
Then it works.
They straight up don't notice that wasn't Yum Yum.
But then, a second later, Yum Yum himself actually walks in and walks up onto the throne and curls up, because guess what? They never checked the kitchen.
He was in the kitchen the entire time, which again, see, very not Yumyan. He just found the warmest place in the whole establishment and curled up there for 8 straight hours.
I know.
Also very cat that, like, you would check the exact same place again and again and again and get increasingly worried about where your cat could be and what could possibly be happening to them. And then it turns out they're, like, on your pillow the entire time.
They were in the second place that you didn't actually check.
In a box at the top of the closet,
yes.
Because, of course, you know?
This happens with my cats all the time. It's constant.
All the time. Mm-hmm.
But yes, but let's rewind to where they're calling for Yum Yum in the woods.
Do you want to summarize that scene?
No, you take
before I get into it. Okay, because Benson is looking for the cat, and Benson is doing what I hesitate to say is a more familiar cat noise. He's pss-ing,
well, at least
right? Like,
at least for us. It is a very familiar cat noise for us.
At which point, Dave cuts in, and he goes, no, I know what to do. And he goes, cats love this. And he goes, ming, 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 which, first of all, absolutely works, which is hilarious.
All the timber cats show up.
Yes, Molly erupts from the bushes, and she's like, what's that enticing noise? And suddenly they're surrounded by every timber cat except for Yum Yum, because again, Yum Yum is in the kitchen. He can't hear any of them. But what this also did for me is unlock a memory, which is that, y'all, ming, ming, ming is the way that people in the Philippines call cats. Not all people. To be clear, I think actually the vast majority of Filipinos that you meet will say pss, 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 when they want to get their cats. But I distinctly remember one time when I was a kid, my siblings and I went to visit the Philippines over the summer. We heard my cousin call a cat in the street, ming, ming, ming. And my siblings and I all turned to him like, dude, what is that? What are you doing? But it was also kind of strange, and the reason I decided to go and look around online is that most of the other Asian references in this show are Korean references, right? Like mandu is a Korean dumpling, right? And Song is a Korean name when we're talking about her mom. So I was like, wait, slow, pause. Do people in Korea also say ming, ming, ming when they're trying to call their cats? I don't think the answer is yes, but I have not been able to find the way Korean people call cats. So, dear listeners, if there's anyone out there with a Korean friend who would like to let us know, I'd be very interested in the answer. I would also, the other research I need to do is there a Filipino writer on this show? Like, how did this happen? I just don't understand how this got here.
That is a great question. Look, if any of our listeners know or can sound off either on Twitter or send us an email, I would be very curious to know these things. Like, how?
Why is this here? Why is this super obscure Filipino thing here?
And it works
because it
instantly.
Is obscure.
And this show made me question the way I call my cat. Like, I was like, maybe I should start saying ming, ming, ming.
Maybe it'll work.
Maybe it'll work. I don't know. Like, the other thing is once you mentioned that, when we were off pod, when you were like, wait a minute, this thing, and you informed me of that, the only thing I could think of is like, from what little Tagalog I've heard and like not understood, listeners, because I do not speak Tagalog, but like, I love listening to other languages sometimes. And from what I have heard, I'm like, Ming, the sound that you like, that specific phonation of the sounds makes perfect sense as to what you would like, because I'm also of the opinion of like different countries, different cats all over, especially domestic cats, will try and adopt what their like people sound like, what their owners sound like. And they'll try and attach their meows to what people say, because anyone who's owned a cat and done a little bit of research knows that cats don't really actually meow to each other. It's because of human influence that they actually let out a meow, because they're like, this is how I communicate with my human.
Yep.
And that makes perfect sense to me. I was like 100%. From what little I know of Tagalog, I'm like, yeah, you would 100% say Ming Ming Ming. Absolutely.
Ming, 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 ming.
Ming Ming Ming.
So among the other things they also try drawing squares on the ground because Dave has read that cats can't help but sit in boxes.
Oh, God, I forgot about the squares.
Absolutely it works on Molly. It works on the cat with the giant eyes. I love, like, the cat that's, like, attacking his square with his axe to try and get out of it.
He has to leave. He has things to do. Danielle, he has things to do. You have trapped him in a square. No. And so it was just like a beautiful side of this episode, just kind of intercut with the rest of it, right? And the absolute best part of all of this is that after Yum Yum walks out of the kitchen and they find him, the actual conclusion to this episode is that at some point, for zero reason, there happens to be an actual cardboard box sitting in the middle of the Great Hall or the forest, wherever they are. And Yum Yum climbs into it, just like curls his little body up. And this other cat is even like, how did he do that? He did a fits and sits and no one understands what's happening.
And anyway, it's so good that episode had a nice lighthearted feel to it and that we spent a lot of that family time together, because then we get into episode 6. It's a trap, right? Yeah. And, I think the final scene in episode 5 is the two wolves. One of them is Margot, Wolf's sister, who is, quote, cured, right? Yeah. Just kind of emerging from wherever they are. And Amelia and her whole army behind them, because Amelia is on her way. Yep. Which takes us right to episode 6, which doesn't have a lot of lightheartedness to it, I don't think. Yeah. Some, but not a lot.
Not a lot. And we get, I honestly think the Chevra sisters are where we get some of that lightheartedness and like, yeah. But like really, it's a real, there aren't too many downers in this show, but this one really pulls down the emotional. Actually, I think Scarlemagne, oddly enough, is part of the lightheartedness, which is...
No, I agree.
Which is not something I expected to say, but here we are. So
his like very snarky little side comments now and then. Absolutely. Yeah.
So somewhat quickly, because again, what even is a quick summary? But like, I think we open with like the Chevra sisters and like trying to get them packed up and trying to get them to safety in Timbercat Valley. Mm-hmm. And the Chevra sisters are sort of like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, there's this cure and it's coming and we need to find safety for you guys. And I love that it's like Kipo thought ahead enough to be like, the Chevra sisters aren't going to know to come here. Let's just go get them. Like,
I mean, I love that for Kipo, but I'm kind of on Dave's side on this one. It's like the Chevra sisters should have known to come there, right? Well, either where Dave is like, yes. Dave keeps trying to get Kipo to stop talking so the Chevra sisters will complete her sentences. I know. Because it's like, no, but don't they know the future?
I know. Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's also this moment of like, if the Chevra sisters were in danger, one would think they would already know to find shelter. But if you look at it from that aspect, then the Chevra sisters are not in danger and probably could have just stayed where they are. But just like every concerned niece, she has to go collect her visionary aunties and bring them into Timbercat Valley.
I mean, fair. That's actually a really good point, because I think actually by bringing them to Timbercat Village, she put them in danger. Because they were off in their like little secret hideout that probably no one would have found.
You remember Danielle.
Village, meanwhile, the address is in the song. Everyone knows.
Remember, Danielle, the only way to get there is by Giant Pig. The only way. Pig. It's the only way to get there. There's literally hundreds of other ways. It's the only way.
The only way. So no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But yeah, no,
Kipo put them in danger.
She 100% put them in danger. Look, I love Kipo, and I know she was trying to do a good thing, but that's what this episode shows us. This episode shows us that it's like, just because you're trying to do a good thing doesn't mean that you're actually looking at all the options, right? Like, and understanding what you're doing. And like, again, that
very much like thinking with her heart.
Yes. And now that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in this particular situation, she really needed to, like I said, explore all her options and fully understand what aspects of what pieces she could kind of pull from, because well, we'll see that in a second. I don't want to give it away too early, but she comes to the Chevre sisters. They consult the cheese and the cheese tells them that Kipo, one way or another, will have to call on the power of the jaguar and what was it?
Fight the ones she cares about.
Yes, fight the one she cares about.
But Dr. Amelia will succeed unless Kipo fights the people she cares about.
Yes. And that fuels the rest of what Kipo does, because of course it does. Like, we've seen this before, right? Yeah. Like, she tries to go against whatever, destiny will have her happen. And in the before times, she realized that this was what the prophecy was saying. Like, she has to become the Mega Jaguar to save the one she loves. And come hell or high water, right? Either she'll turn back human or she won't, but she has to do this.
I like the way that you framed it, though, is not like fully thinking about all of the different ways there could be to interpret one's fate, right? Because, again, Dave is not wrong when he says, well, but they were right when it came to their other prediction, right? Because they were right. She did have to turn Mega Jaguar in order to ultimately win that last battle or defeat Scarlemagne, whatever it is. But the prediction that they made never said that she would never be able to go back. Right. It's just kind of how she interpreted it.
Exactly.
So again, with this specific fate or destiny, it's actually super broad. It's not a really detailed statement that she's going to have to, quote, fight the ones she cares about. But she interprets that to mean I'm going to have to fight the burrow humans.
Right.
Because she's like, well, Dr. Amelia has put together an army. The army is the burrow humans. I care about the burrow humans. So obviously this destiny is that I have to fight the burrow humans. But we don't know that. The ones she cares about could be mutes. She cares about mutes. The ones she cares about could be, I don't know, her parents somehow, right?
Yeah, it could definitely be that. It's one of the things that like always bugs me whenever there's something that it's like, this is a thing we haven't considered. And it's like, no, you haven't considered it, have you?
Not even for 2 seconds.
I know. So what happens essentially is they get the Chevre sisters into Timbercap Valley. I love the tour.
Yes.
Like, they can't see anything, bud. They can't see anything.
Like, Benson is holding Dave's hands and the hands of the Chevre sisters, like, in a little line behind him.
Yeah.
Because he needs to, like, lead them around. It's like, this is the bush where I hid Molly's axes. This is Zane in his litter box prison. Yeah. It's just, why are we doing this? I don't know why is this happening? This is the Great Hall, where all the important meetings happen, just like the one that we're interrupting right now.
So she collects the Chevre sisters, they go to Timbercap Valley, and like, everyone is sort of trying to prepare. A lot of people are basically just terrified.
Yeah, I mean, so much so that Jamak has been able to get the scooter skunks and the Newton wolves to not join Hamufa, but at least to be
in the same room,
go behind the wall. Yeah, exactly. Like, go behind the wall and just help fight off Dr. Amelia. Because, enemy of my enemy is my, well, not friends, but maybe acquaintance that I won't eat today.
I love that he got the Newton wolves, and I'm like, you've got a pair of brass ones, buddy. Like,
But I love that for Jamak too, because he really is like an A-team fighter.
Yeah,
Jamak can absolutely handle himself.
Yes,
when it comes to the scooter skunks and the Newton wolves, and so he's done that. Right? Leo and Song are not in this episode at all because they're off just finding vaccine ingredients, which is probably for the best. I don't think that they would have helped this situation in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
Amelia and her army are chanting "Humans on top" as they approach the Death Ivy. And that's where it kind of all comes together, right? All of the mutes and Kipo and her team are behind the wall. Dr. Amelia approaches. I love the like meowy cat alarm.
I know.
Yeah, like over the loudspeaker. And this is the moment I think where it is actually helpful that Kipo is who she is, right? And that she is kind of her diehard optimist, because as Kipo and her team are watching the army approach the wall, what they very quickly realize is that Dr. Amelia and her army don't know that that's Death Ivy. And they were just gonna walk straight into it.
They sure were.
Which is kind of horrifying when you really think about it.
Yeah.
So Kipo immediately takes the loudspeaker and is just like, wait!
Don't take another step.
No, because she looks down and it's like their math teacher, Dahlia and Asher's parents are there. It's everyone.
Yeah.
Except for, well, Troy's dad, who I actually don't really know where Roberto is. Where's Roberto?
I think Roberto is in Timbercap Valley, isn't he? Am I wrong about that?
I mean, he should be, but why haven't I seen him? Weird.
I think he's in Timbercap Valley somewhere. I mean,
he's definitely there. I'm just, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm surprised we didn't see him at all in episodes 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I guess he's not narratively relevant, but still, would have been nice to just see him like, boop doop, I'm here.
I know. It would have been nice to have him be one of the people that's like, hey, we're not actually all awful here. Hi, everybody. You know me. You know.
Hi.
Have him be one of those voices.
Exactly. Going back to what we were kind of saying in, when we were discussing episode 5, this wall is only helpful to a point, right? Because Kipo basically thought that she was playing, what is the idiom I'm trying to think of, where you like throw down the highest card possible? There's an idiom that describes that moment. The ace in the hole.
Yeah.
She thought it would be this ace in the hole moment, right? Like, aha, it's a wall of Death Ivy. Turn around and go home. And instead, Dr. Amelia, without skipping a beat, literally turns around, picks up 2 branches from the ground, and starts just calmly taking apart the wall with 2 branches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there. That's the problem.
The problem is Dr. Amelia can think circles around you. Like, she just can. She's so smart. That's her superpower. Like, she is flawed in many other ways, but she is extremely intelligent. And, and it's difficult to fight against something like that because you always constantly feel like she's 2 steps ahead, as we saw a couple episodes ago.
Yeah. And they had done so much to try and stop her, right? They know, well, Dr. Amelia says that you can't just burn the wall down because the fumes are poisonous. But they had gone so far as to get the Dubstep bees to talk to the dragonflies and get the dragonflies to agree not to fly Dr. Amelia over the wall.
Right.
So Keeple's like, I've got it covered. I've thought of all the possibilities.
And I don't have to turn into the Mega Jaguar.
She was wrong.
And so slowly the humans take apart this wall and eventually they get in. I mean, not without some really close calls. Like, some of the Death Ivy falls at moments and is like, please pay attention to what you're doing. Because again, it's Death
not
Ivy.
For nothing though, Joy. They all have giant cloaks with hoods. And yet, no one had their hood up, which would have been a really easy way to protect yourself from falling Death Ivy.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. That was a little bit of an oopsie.
That's the only thing that bothered me about that scene. I know Hogue doesn't have a cloak, but Greta sure does, and so does Dr. Amelia.
Yeah, it is a little bit foolish of forest for the trees moment of just that little extra protection, which is literally built into your outfit.
Put your hood and your mask on.
Put your hood and mask on. So
while that's happening, inside of the walls, we're getting a little bit of a Home Alone situation.
Yes. They see that the wall isn't working. So they're like, okay, we're going to have to come up with some other way to stop them. And then it's like, traps. We can use traps. We can dig a bunch of holes. And Wolf gets this great lesson from Benson and Dave.
Yes. That pranks are fun things to play on your friends, and that trapping someone can be a prank.
My God.
Dave, why'd you tell her about pranks? Now I look like a porcupine. I will point out that Wolf Despite Benson saying that she took her prank a little bit too far, Wolf was very mindful, and the arrows that she set up only pierced the person who's immortal. So,
look, I will give this to Wolf. She is not going to hurt you beyond your capacity to be hurt. It just so happens that Dave is an immortal bug and can take a hit. So it's a little bit like she understands that increase.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when you give a rich person a fine, it's like if it's going to be $50, it doesn't matter. Like you have to actually make it hurt.
Yep. Exactly.
And like, but it still doesn't hurt Dave because Dave is just like, ah.
Now I look like a porcupine.
Beautiful.
Oh, boy.
Beautiful thing. I love that this happens. But yes, so they decide to create a bunch of traps. And so that, and I think we skipped over this, but they also have, what's his name? The captive. Zane. They also have Zane captive, and Zane has developed a rapport with one of the raccoons. Label. And they have this kind of friendship going where they're like super gravelly, like bro voice at each other, and I live for it. I absolutely live for their friendship. I live for their friendship so hard. And he's just there in a cage and just, slowly getting to know the mutes around him and like really getting to know Label. And like, so these humans burst in and there's no one around. Absolutely no one.
Perfect.
And it lulls them into this false sense of security. And of course, as soon as they walk in a little bit, they start falling into these traps. And then it's like, it leads them into, okay, but it's booby trapped. And then like people run a certain way. And then that leads to another trap and another trap and another trap. Until finally we have Dr. Amelia in a glass cage of emotion.
I like the way this operation was set up because Kipo didn't force anyone to do any one thing. It's like everyone's ideas are good ideas. And so there's like 4 simultaneously terribly named operations going on. And it's like, you know what, Jamak? If your idea of a perfect trap is a hole with leaves over it, you do you, man. Like, make a hole with leaves over it. Whereas the timber cats obviously want to use the balls of yarn and the snakes want to use whatever. There's trap after trap after trap, ending with Dr. Amelia inside the glass cage. Now, what they were not able to predict is that Greta is super, super strong. Yeah. Like inhumanly strong.
Yeah. Have we looked into if Greta is a mute or not? Have we discerned?
Have we tried just like gently poking her with the cure to see whether anything happens?
See if anything happens. No, but Greta is so strong that she's able to basically tear the door off this glass cage.
Which, of course, Dr. Amelia has the most withering sort of, I knew I kept you around for a reason, which is like, bleh, right?
I know.
But yeah, sure. That was her plan F. Because, again, Dr. Amelia is always 2 steps ahead. So, trap her in a cage, great. There's Greta. And Greta gets her right out. Like, she's stuck in a cage for a minute. Maybe.
I know. It's barely any time.
Yeah.
We also set Scarlemagne free to run amok and scare people.
I love that for him, that he promises not to mind control anyone, which, like, listen, I'm glad that Kipo made him do that, I guess. But part of me is like, we kind of have a fix for that. If any, like, worst case, we get Mulholland back, right? But anyway, he's promised.
I do have to point out, I was full on expecting him to have crossies behind his back.
Yeah.
But no, he definitely doesn't mind control anybody because I think, honestly, he's just high on the fact that they will be terrified of him regardless. And he can just run up behind them and be like, boo. And they're so freaked out that they run into the trap that they didn't see.
I mean, that's so true because that's literally all he does. He doesn't even like fight or hurt anyone. He just runs around laughing maniacally.
Laughing, doing a really good like mandrill shout and a little, little hooting. And that's it. That's his entire job. And it's so good. It's so effective.
And like this episode does that really, I mean, I know it's a little bit tropey, but I think that it does it pretty effectively. And by a little bit tropey, I mean like literally every movie or TV show where there's a giant 5-army battle scene, right? And at first, one side of the army seems to be doing very, very well. And usually that side of the army is the hero's side of the army. And you get to this moment where it's like, we can do this. And then the tide of the battle turns, which is when Greta is able to get Dr. Amelia out of her cage. And even though most of the humans were in their traps, once Dr. Amelia is out of her cage, all of a sudden, now that she also has Greta and Zane on her side, she starts helping to get other people out of their traps, right? And before Kipo knows it, no one is in traps and everyone is armed. And so all of a sudden, mute after mute after mute is getting shot with the cure. And they don't even take out like nameless mutes, for lack of a better way to say it. They take out like characters we know and love.
Yeah, they take out the characters that we've met, like some of the first. I mean, obviously, Yumyan was the first one they took out, and kind of the first mute we ever. Well, one of the first mutes we ever met, way back in episode 3 of season 1. But like the they take out one of the rats from Ratland, and they take out one of the umlaut snakes. Yeah,
and again, like not even just like umlaut snake number 3. They take out Camille.
Yeah, they take out Camille. They take out characters that we have grown to love.
Mm-hmm. And they take of the Billions
one
brothers.
Of the Billions. See, that's what I was getting at. The one Billions brother that goes down. That one feels like he understands that something bad has happened.
Yeah.
And I mean,
he literally says, I can feel my mind fading like a dying star, which they try to make a little bit funny with like kind of the ironic way that he says it and the fact that he went back to astronomy. But when you really think about what's happening to him in that moment is kind of horrifying.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And this is the horrifying sequence of events that happens, which eventually makes Kipo just completely rage out and say, stop hurting my friends. And she goes full Mega Jaguar and finds out that, guess what? The cure doesn't work on Kipo because Kipo is the reason the cure works. And she's immune to it. Her
DNA is in it.
She's absolutely immune to it.
Yep.
And
so once Dr. Amelia realizes that there is a giant Mega Mute in this camp that she has no weapon to fight against, right? Because she doesn't have the sonic emitter anymore. That's been destroyed. And the cure, and Kipo's immune to the cure. The army immediately just turns right around and leaves.
Yeah, retreat, right? Full retreat.
And that means one of two things. First of all, I mean, and the most important thing it means is that if Kipo had just gone Mega Mute at the beginning, she probably could have scared away the army without even hurting any of them, probably. Right?
Because she would have had no reason to. Because as soon as you shoot her once, they see she's not going to change. And that's it. That's the fight. Like, she wouldn't have had to hurt anybody. And I mean, even as we were, I don't think she actually hurt that many people. I don't actually think she hurt anybody.
Well, she didn't hurt any humans, but a whole ton of mutes sure got hurt. And by hurt, we mean, had their mental faculties taken away from them.
Yeah.
Their mental faculties and their basic personalities.
Yeah. It was bad. It was really bad. And if she had just trusted that that this was an option to possibly protect everyone. Right. And like, even, the unfortunate thing is like Song is working so hard on a vaccine. It didn't even occur to her that the cure might not even hurt Kipo. Right. Because like if we had not been drilling so hard towards a vaccine, maybe we could have stepped back and thought a little bit about like, well, if she used Kipo's DNA to make the cure, maybe it wouldn't work on Kipo. Right. Like that seems like something that Song would have been able to piece together.
Yeah.
It's such an unfortunate, like, I think it really speaks to the level of trauma of when you have something that you are capable of doing and that that's a little bit terrifying. That's a little bit maybe uncomfortable, that like you're not fully settled within your own like being. You know, like when you are capable of something that can be very destructive and very harmful to people, and you are a person who will run after whatever it is headlong, you know, and not really think before you leap. I think she was actually trying, like, this is one of those ways that the lesson of thinking through thinking through your plan actually backfired, because she was so worried about the thing that she would do without thinking that she didn't think about anything else in front of her.
Yeah.
You know, like it just felt very realistic of like this thing that, you know, and that could be anything. Like, you know, when somebody has an ability to, I mean, you know, I hate to kind of compare it to like being in the army or being in a war or being able to fight, and like you have the ability to protect someone, and then you kind of have to unlearn that, right? Like to be in quote unquote normal society. Like to return home, you kind of have to unlearn the things you did while you were away from home. And like there's just like
I think
there's trade-offs, I think is what I'm getting at.
I think that makes sense. And I think you're right that it's like such a typical thing for people to tie up who they are and their personhood with the things that they are capable of doing.
Exactly.
Right. And in this situation, it's like a very tangible example of what's going on there, which is that like Kipo thinks that when she turns Mega Jaguar, she's turning into a monster.
Exactly.
Right. But she's not, because when she turns Mega Jaguar, she's still her. Right. So when she was imagining like, oh, let me turn into a Mega Jaguar, she was going back to what had happened the first time she did that, right? Where she accidentally hurt Benson and his poor arm or shoulder. I can't remember exactly what it was, and thinking like, I'm going to do that again. But the thing is like, Kipo, you're not. Right? Like think about all of the other times you turned Mega Jaguar and you were able to use that to protect the people you love.
Right.
But she hasn't really been able to.
Like think about the way you benignly turned into the Mega Jaguar just to prevent Scarlemagne from leaving Timbercap Valley.
Yeah.
Like that's all you did.
She hasn't really not weirdly, because again, I think this is pretty normal. She just hasn't really been able to internalize that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, she hasn't had the time.
Taking this to another level, I think that on some level, as much as she's all in on Hamufa and this human mute alliance, she's still kind of afraid of mutes.
Yeah, I think
she is.
I think it's this internal fear of the amount of destruction that she could possibly do. Yeah. Right. And especially the idea that she would fight her friends. Like, I think she, you know, like that's the worst, right? Like losing herself in this Mega Jaguar. And like you said, being defined by the fact that that could happen at any minute. When, you know, we've seen that that's not true. Like, yes, it could happen at any minute, but she has enough self-control at this point to really know who her friends are and to be able to recognize them in a crowd and to be able to master being the Mega Jaguar. And like, she doesn't need a focal point anymore. She doesn't, you know, like she's able to just turn it on and off. And it felt a little like, you know, like being afraid of that thing, but not really processing that fear and just kind of blindly fearing it, which again, I think says, you know, to your point of like, yeah, maybe she is a little afraid of mutes because
on some level.
Yeah. And why wouldn't she be?
But you're right, which is also that the past X number of weeks for Kipo have just been like thing after thing after thing after thing. And she hasn't really had time to like unpack and interrogate anything that is actually going on with her.
Yeah. I mean, you have this interesting like difference. Like if you were to compare it to something more like, you know, Avatar: The Last Airbender, where you actually had the characters level up at somewhat of a steady pace. And then all of a sudden, like, because it's so steady, they're able to actually understand what they're doing and they're actually able to add it to their repertoire. Like,
there are also like days of time where they're just on the back of a flying bison trying to get from one place to another. You know, that's a lot of introspective time.
Exactly.
Kipo hasn't really had that. I hate to say privilege, but she hasn't really had that opportunity.
No, she hasn't. I mean, it is a little bit privileged to just hang out on the back of a sky bison and think about your place in the world. It's It's a little bit. It is a little bit that. So we get this moment of she could have saved the day. And because she was too afraid to actually consider what that meant, you know, she sort of saves it at the end, but not before, as you said, a bunch of people get hurt.
Yeah. And as one of the Billions put it, this is no win.
Yeah.
Because then they're all just like sadly looking at their counterparts.
I know. I know. It's a really...
Like Amy and Brad and the Skunks and Wheels, just like, painful. And now they're all feeling sad. Kipo is feeling mad. And what we get at the end is her just looking at the screen like, this was my fault, right? And if I had just accepted my fate from the start, none of this would have happened. And then she looks right at the screen and is like, I won't make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
So now we're ready for the final act of the 3rd season, which will take place over 4 episodes. I kind of can't wait.
I wish everyone could see Danielle's face. It was pretty great.
I mean,
no, we're
have
coming
to accept that there has to be like a little filler, right?
We're coming up on the end of the episodes, on the end of the series. I will tell you, there is definitely some more ridiculousness ahead. Don't worry.
Yeah, there has to be, because there are 4 episodes left.
Yeah.
They're not going to spend 4 episodes on a final battle. Like, this isn't an anime.
You watch your mouth. No, I'm kidding. No, it isn't. It isn't an anime. That's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, do you have a one more thing? I feel like we covered so many of the things I was possibly going to talk about.
There's a couple scenes that I thought were funny that we really didn't have time to touch on. Do you have one?
All I wrote down was Jamaka's on traps, and I thought that was funny. No, wait, hang on, wait.
Okay, because I have 2 scenes as options, so you should go first.
Yes, I did write down one. In case you pick
one of mine.
Why did I write down? I wrote down what would scare the humans, and I don't remember.
Okay, that was one of my 2 scenes.
Hey.
That was one of my 2 scenes. Okay, because when Dr. Amelia is a day away,
yes,
right?
Yeah,
but Kipo's mom needs more than a day to come up with the vaccine. The mute's first instinct is like, let's fight her. We'll sharpen our axes. Our fangs are always sharp, right?
Yeah.
And Wolf is like, none of that is going to stop darts that are full of the cure. And Dave suggests a wall of skunk stink, right? And Kipo's like, that's a great idea. And Benson and Dave are like, is it? And she goes, not the skunk stink, but the wall. All right, what else could we build a wall out of? Like something that humans are afraid of. And the entire crowd just starts shouting out suggestions for things that humans are afraid of. And I'm actually just going to read what they say.
Please, because they were all
the writers of this show did a really, really good job here. So I'm just going to read it. Clowns, other humans, diversity, public speaking, great big cockroach, they're past. Mega monkey? Oh, never mind.
Diversity, I think, is where I lost it and why I wrote that down.
Diversity? I mean, diversity's hilarious. But so is Mega monkey. Oh, never mind. I mean, just fantastic. And then circling it all back, Benson shouts out, Death Ivy. Thank you, Benson, for having a usable idea. And then he turns to Dave and goes, I also said clowns, but I got there.
Yes.
So the first suggestion was his.
That is, in fact, my one more thing. 100%. Thank you for remembering my brain.
Fantastic scene. I mean, I paused and wrote down everything that everyone said because it was beautiful and so well done. Shall that be our shared one more thing? Okay, no. Here's my one more thing then.
Yes.
Because we mentioned pranks earlier, I thought there was another example of a fantastic prank in that episode. And that is when Benson steps on a bug. And Dave this.
Yes.
And Dave convinces him that he's highly offended and disgusted at the fact that Benson would kill a bug.
And it's like, what can I do to make it up to you, Dave? Well, we're going to have to find a tiny human.
A small, tiny human to squish. Like a baby? That's a baby, Dave.
And it goes on for so long. And then
so long that Dave forgets that they were looking for Yum Yum. He was like so busy messing with Benson that he forgot they were looking for Yum Yum. Because he was, in fact, messing with Benson. And then Dave himself goes on to step on several bugs.
Because Dave does not care.
Does not care. A bit speciesist, actually, that Benson would think Dave cared about other bugs. Like, come on, man.
I mean, if anyone has ever observed bugs before, I feel like other bugs don't care about other bugs. There are some bugs that care. Most bugs do not.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, solid. One more thing.
That, I think, is as good an episode ending as any.
Perfect.
So with that, listeners, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, how do you get a pet cat's attention? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/bachpod.
Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.